Zero, one.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to the Prophets of the People podcast. Today, I'm sitting down with Mr. Brian Boyer here from Pickup USA in Lee Summit, Missouri. Thank you for sitting down with me, Mr. Boyer. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Let's do this.
All
Let's
right,
do
that's
this.
good to hear. So mainly, the show is just about helping to educate people on different businesses that are out here in the community, and then just giving people different ideas of what industries and areas they can get into. Mainly some of their passions that they might be into, and so that's why I wanted to sit down with you because I've been around you a couple of years, like my son and me. We used to come to the Pickup USA. So I said, let me sit down with Brian and see how he got into this business. So my first question is, how did you get into basketball itself?
Well, I don't know how. It's just a passion I had. I think as we all did when we were growing up, we always had people we looked up to, right? I mean, and when I was a kid, I was always into sports. But I actually had an older brother who was 4 years older than me. He was really into basketball. He's a really good player. We live in a small town, and it was just that you just latch on, and I loved watching him play, and I wanted to be like him, and had really good coaches that were good influences on me, as a small kid. And so it was just that. I just fell in love with the sport. And all through high school, I wanted to play college basketball, but I wasn't that good. I mean, I was a good high school player at best. But I had this burning passion to be around basketball and to coach basketball. And that's how it just took off from there. I just devoted a lot of time to it. I tried to go on to college and walk on at Missouri Western, but I wasn't good enough. The same thing, I right away when I got with the coaches at Missouri Western was like, look, I know I'm not good enough to play here, but I want to coach. I want to get, and they were so good with me, and they helped me, to start getting into coaching, student manager, then a student coach, and then from there a grad assistant, from there an assistant coach, to eventually a Division I head coach, and basically my whole life has been basketball. But it just all started with that being around the sport, the passion, following my brother who played, and just from there it took off.
Okay, cool. So as far as becoming a coach, you don't have to necessarily be a phenomenal player. You could just, like you said, learn the game and then learn how to instruct others how to play and stuff like that.
So I've told people from day one that one of the greatest blessings in my life was not being good enough to play.
Yeah.
Because when I went to college at Missouri Western, it's a Division II school, very good program, successful program, but at a school that size, they don't have the resources, the money to hire a lot of assistant coaches. So I was 18, 19 years old, and the coaches gave me an opportunity to basically whatever I wanted to do, they would let me do. So I'm 19 years old. They're letting me go out recruiting. They're letting me watch teams and scout. I'm sitting in on the practices. I'm in the coaches meetings and everything. So at the age of 19, I'm doing things that most people that get into coaching don't get to do until they're 25, 26, 27 years old. Mm-hmm. And so by not being good enough, it was a blessing to me because I got to see things from a coach's standpoint that you don't normally get to see till you're much older. And then things just, took off from there. I was on the men's side as a student assistant. And what happened at Missouri Western was they ended up hiring a women's coach, Jeff Mitty. He's currently the women's head coach at Kansas State now. And when they hired him, they didn't have the money to hire an assistant. So they asked me for 1 year if I could help out with both. So here I am at the time, I think I was 21 years old. And I'm volunteering to help with the men's program and the women's program. And, you're getting twice the basketball. And, I didn't have a life. There was no going out. There was no having fun in college. It was just work. That's all I did, but I loved it. And then from there, I ended up getting more on the women's side, became full-time assistant. Coach Mitty got the head coaching job at Arkansas State, Division I. I went with him to there. We were successful. 4 years later, he moves on. I get the head coaching job. And things just happened so quickly at a young age. And again, I go back to it because I wasn't a very good basketball player. That's how it all happened.
Yeah. But I know you said you was passionate about the game and like your interests kept you around it, like where you didn't just say, well, forget this, let me go do something else. You still had a desire to continue to learn about it and help other players to be able to grow in the game itself, though.
There was the passion from day one, as I
Yeah,
just loved the sport. I loved everything about it, and I loved the kids and the people and everything around it. And and that's just where it all started. And then it come into, I was raised in a small town. My dad was a farmer, and work never scared me.
yeah,
And even at a young age, I would rather be in the gym working and doing whatever I could to help my head coach and my assistant coach, whatever I could do. I was more interested in that than going out and having fun in college and partying. I just wanted to work, and and I got rewarded for it, and at a young age, and but yeah, just the passion of being around and kids and developing, obviously the basketball part of it, but just watching them develop as people as well as developing as basketball players.
yeah. 'Cause that's a good thing to look at. Like if say you don't make it as a player, but then there's other opportunities that you can have, within the that sport as well. So because I know sometimes people may look at it like, "Why didn't make it, to the NBA or to the place I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to be," and maybe give up, start doing some other stuff. But would your advice be, I guess, to still like look into other options that's around this sport where they could still be involved? And
I think and I can only speak from basketball because it's one of
yeah,
my
from
back, but it's
basketball.
like I think anything in life. If you want to, there's ways. People need help. People want people around them that work.
Yeah,
And that again was what was fortunate with me about being at a smaller level school is they want people they need people to help. They need people to work. They don't have the money. The SEC schools, the Big 12 schools, they got money. They're hiring people and they're paying. But the smaller schools, they just need people to work. And so that's the thing is that, if it, even if you're not good enough as a player, if you're willing to work and you have the passion for it, there's a way. There are needs. There's a way to figure it out. And again, I don't think that's just sports. I think it's anything. If you're willing to work,
yeah.
you can start at the bottom and just work your way up.
So did you have to do a lot of volunteering, or was it more so they
Absolutely.
they paid you, or
No,
you
no,
had
no.
to?
Yeah, it was a lot. I mean, it was a lot of volunteering,
Mhm.
and but you found ways. Like I would devote so much time, and the hard thing about it was I put so much time into it. I didn't have time, the hours to go get a paying job.
Yeah,
That's what was hard. But what I would do is you would find ways. Like in the summertime, I would help. I would work basketball camps. I would help him run basketball camps. I would go to TCU. I'd go to Kansas State with Lon Kruger and coaches, and I would work in summer camps with other schools just to try to make some money to help me through the school year.
mhm.
And then eventually, yeah, after a couple of years, and you start getting some scholarship money. So one of the great thing was as I wasn't really making money when I was doing this through college, but I also left college and I didn't have any debt. I didn't have any loans or anything like that. So I got
Yeah.
some scholarship money to help out, and then eventually you start getting a stipend, and then finally, when I got to Arkansas State, I finally, for the first time, I start getting a salary and moving from there.
So when you went to school, did you go to college for like sports or what?
Yeah, I was actually I was a PE major actually. It was a physical education major, and my thought was I didn't really think going into this that I would have an opportunity to be a college coach, and that my goal was just to coach. I didn't care at what level. Now, as it turns out, I've never once coached at the high school level. My whole coaching career was in college. But the degree was at the time I didn't know it, so I just got a teaching degree, a PE teaching, phys ed teaching degree,
Mhm.
and so yeah, so that's how it started out. And I always tell people it's funny when I was in my 20 years of being a head coach, Division I head coach, I had numerous assistant coaches, and if you go through the list of assistant coaches, I had you name it. I had an assistant coach that was a math major. I had an assistant coach who was a business major. Obviously had assistant coaches who were teaching me. I had one assistant coach who didn't have a college degree, hadn't finished it up. So there's so many. I had another assistant that was a psychology major. So there's not a direct path when you look at college coaching. There's not a script in how you get there or degree.
Mhm.
All of those backgrounds can help you in different ways. I personally was a physical education major, and there were things that I learned in ways to teach and ways to things like that did help me with coaching. But that's not an exact science. If you go through the college coaching, you'll find degrees from all over. And like I said, you may even find some that don't even have college degrees, because at the Division I level, you don't have to teach. So you don't necessarily have to have a master's or something like that. So there's just all ways to get there.
So mainly you just got to learn how to like work with people,
Yeah.
like you said, be around the game, get the experience,
Yeah.
and then do you have to prove yourself as far as being a coach? Like like you've won or you know what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And the thing about college coaching is, so much about college coaching isn't necessarily the basketball. It's to really making the college coaching. It's recruiting, it's sales, and that's why there's so many different backgrounds of, if you look at when I was a head coach Division I, and you look at a year's time frame, probably actually coaching basketball on the court, I have no idea. It's probably 10% of the job. The rest of the job is selling your program to fans, to boosters, and recruiting, meeting coaches, AAU coaches, parents, aunts, uncles, you're constantly selling your program. You have to do that in order to have the players in place to be successful to win. So the actual coaching is really a small piece of everything that you have to do.
So yeah, you got to be able to recruit good players, basically. So that way,
Yeah, and that's the thing is, it's a full-time job, because we would start recruiting kids as early as 8th grade, and it's got to be an everyday thing from the 8th grade on. And you might, at the time, you have a list of maybe 100 or more kids that you start out recruiting at that age, and it kind of, the list dwindles and stuff like that. But it's a nonstop job. The month of July, which most people don't think about basketball in July, the month of July was probably our busiest month as a college coach. I was never home during the month of July because we're out hitting every one of the AAU tournaments, traveling, stuff like that. September is a brutal month because you're trying to get your team prepared and developing, but that was a month where you're out doing visits and home visits and all that stuff. So the actual season itself, people see between November and March, but it's the time that you spend outside of the season that really can make or break your program.
all right, cool. So my next question is then, so as far as Pickup USA, how did you get into that?
Yeah, so my coaching, it was done about 5 years ago. I was just totally burned out, and I was still fairly young. I was only 50, but again, everything started so young for me. I was a Division I head coach at the age of 28. And so by the time 20 years into it, I was just worn out, and I was like, I'm done. I couldn't do it anymore. Probably coached a year or two longer than I should have, because I don't think the last 2 years I was exhausted all the time. I just couldn't devote my energy to it anymore. So I got out of it. I was like, I'm done coaching. Well, then it's like, okay, wow, now I got to figure out what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I'm too young to just retire. So like anything else, I started just researching. Do I want to work banks or try and sell insurance, real estate? What do you do? And nothing, nothing interested me. And then I came across Pickup USA Fitness. It was a business they started a couple years earlier in Irwindale, California, Los Angeles, and they were just starting to franchise it out. They now had locations in Houston, Arizona, and Dallas at the time. And so I was like, this is interesting. And I started diving into it a little bit and had communication with them. They started to walk me through the process of this is what it would take and how you go about this. And I had interest in it, obviously, because of the background. But what was intimidating was I've never ran a business. All I'd ever done was coach. I had no idea what I was doing. Well, my brother actually lived here in Kansas City, lived in Liberty. He was an accountant, worked at Ernst & Young. And so I started talking with him about it. He's the numbers guy. He's the accountant. That's his background. And so we started just running numbers. He started breaking everything down. He convinced me. It's like, look, this is something that can work. And so he and I decided to make a run at it. We partnered at it, and we decided to buy and open up a franchise here in the Kansas City area.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. So like, how long have you been here at the? How long is Pickup USA?
Yeah, January 1st was 4 years, so a little over 4 years. So we started. I think the timeline of it, we finally agreed. We signed the franchise agreement. I believe it was in August. August 1st, somewhere around there. And at that point we started. Okay, now we got to find a facility, and we started working on trying to find a location, a facility. That was hard. It was discouraging because we couldn't find, because of the facility we have now. It's 15,000 square foot. But a lot of places you would find of that size, the columns inside of it, you couldn't get basketball courts, or maybe the ceilings were too low. Or if you would find it, it was buried in some industrial park where nobody would find it. And so we got into about February, so we're about 5-6 months in, and we're starting to really get discouraged of whether it's going to happen. Get into March, and then COVID hit, and then it's like, wow, now what? Now what happens? We're basically our country is shut down. California, where the original Pickup USA Fitness is, California has totally shut down. They've had to shut their doors. They had actually just opened one a month before in Detroit. They had to shut their doors. And so we basically were at a standstill. It's like, well, what do we do now? But what we kept doing was still, trying to find a location, thinking, okay, because nobody knew at the time how long, obviously, COVID would last to shut things down. And it was right about after COVID hit, towards the end of March, they just started building a facility here in Lee Summit, where we're located now. And they approached us, and they, like all business at that time, they were needing tenants, and they were getting ready to build I think it's 60,000 square foot facility, and they really offered a lot to us. They're going to do the build out and all that stuff. So we took a leap of faith, and we signed a lease agreement. And it was then in October 1st where we were able to start pre-sales, and then January we finally opened our door, just as kind of the country was starting to open back up after COVID.
Yeah, because I think that's when I found it. I think I seen it off the highway, and I was like, let me go over there.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to find somewhere to play basketball too.
Yeah.
And so that's how I seen it. So like, as far as your advertising, marketing, like, how do y'all do that? Like,
yeah, so the most of it is through social media. That's where we found that we have most success. When we were trying to get open, there was, and nothing certainly against, everybody has a niche in what advertising works, what doesn't work, but we decided to go with the radio advertising with a big sports radio company here in Kansas City, and we spent $5,000, thinking this would be great to get our name out and all that. And this is where you learn as you go along what works, doesn't work. Spent $5,000 in advertising. I think we got one phone call from it. But I still go back and tell people I don't regret doing it. It's not like it, because I think what happened is then we started doing the social media after that, and then people, I think, started seeing us. And there's no doubt that at some point people are like, oh, wait a minute, that's what we heard about, well back, so I think it all kind of came together. But as it's turned out, really social media has been just our driving force, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, and that's kind of the avenue we've gone.
Yeah, and I think I know you had like a referral thing too. I think like if you can come for a day, like a free day. So I don't know if y'all still do that now.
We do. Yeah, just to come. Yeah, you can, and that's part of with being a franchise. Our website, everything is still ran through corporate, and you can, like, through the website, people can go in and request a 1 day trial, or not even a day. It's like an hour to come in and try it, and they come in, and that's how we get people in the door. They have a good time, hopefully, and then hopefully sell membership, because we're membership based. Like, we don't do day passes, walk in. We're just like any other fitness center. Everything is membership driven.
Yeah.
Everything we do is about driving memberships. Like, and I know your son has come to a lot of our camps and things like that. Anytime we do camps, anytime we do leagues, we do things like that. That's not really a way for us to make money. It's a way to get people in the door and eventually, hopefully, get memberships. The memberships are what businesses like ours need to sustain.
Yeah. So do people only? Because I know y'all have a fitness center in here too. So like, do y'all just only cater to people that want to play basketball, or are other people able to come as well?
Yeah, correct. And that's part of what the whole model is basketball is what we do. I mean, and that's, and in this day and age, especially with so many facilities, you got pickleball, you got volleyball, you got everything going on. We are strictly basketball 7 days a week, nothing but basketball. But part of it is we do have a weight room fitness center, as you mentioned. And so the members play basketball, they can work out in there, they can train. We do private training, we do group training. but we also have memberships just for that area, just like any other fitness center. So what we
Yeah.
found is we have a lot of parents who, their kids may be in here working out, playing basketball. Well, they don't want to just sit around, so they'll get a membership and they'll get their workout in as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. So I know you said you didn't have any kind of business background. Like, do you have any other family members that were in business? Or I know you said your brother's an
Yeah,
accountant, so like to where they could, I guess, like you said, give you direction and help you with your business
yeah.
endeavor.
So it's mainly, yeah, Kevin, my brother. That's where, and he's he handles, like, when it comes to payroll, taxes, all that stuff. He was, when we did the negotiating with our lease and handling that and all that stuff. That's what he does. That's, to him, that's shooting a shooting a jump shot. For
Mm-hmm.
for me, shooting a jump shot, showing somebody how to shoot a jump shot, that's routine to me. That's daily. For him, numbers, that's his jump shot. That's so easy to him. Um, so having him, I couldn't have done this without him. He's so good with that type of thing. And then also, um, you know, have it being a part of a franchise, there are pros and cons of everything, but certainly the pros side of that is they had everything worked out ahead of time. There's a plan in place of, this, like, even from all the equipment you need up front. They have, of, like, where do you go to get your flooring, where do you go to get your basketballs, where do you go to get your fitness center. They have contracts with a fitness company for that, so they were really critical in all that too, of walking us through that, of all that stuff to get started.
All right, and then like, what's the pros, of having your own business now?
um I think the one thing about it is just like being a head coach, like, I loved being an assistant coach. I did not aspire to be necessarily a head coach. I loved being an assistant coach. I loved helping and advising and all of that stuff. But there's no doubt that when you become the head coach, now it's yours. You got to live and die with every win and loss. You got to live and die with the decision. They always say in coaching, that moving over, what is it, 18 inches from assistant to head coach, what a difference that is. The pressure, and now everything's on you. But there's also the excitement part of that too, of just, all right, hey, this is my deal now as a head coach. If you lose, they're not going to blame the assistant coach. It's you, and that
Mm.
the challenge of that. And I think it's no different of that I've found in running a business too. Is the good and the bad of it is every decision falls on me now. You've got people working for you, you got people helping you, but if things don't go well, it's on me. If and so just that part of it is finally, hey, this is my deal. It's either going to sink or swim because of me. So.
Yeah. And also, I know you said that's a part of the dislikes as well, just everything, being on your shoulders. And so, so as far as like Pickup USA itself, what are some of the other services that you have? I know you said you do trainings, you do some different leagues and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. So it's really anything basketball related. Like we do, you've got access. The members have access to the court 7 days a week. They got access to the weight room, fitness center. We do group basketball training sessions for kids every day. We do youth pickup games pretty much every day, and I think that is so cool. It's one of the things I love, and a lot of actually the other newer Pickup USA Fitness, they've gone away from that. I don't ever want to go away from that because I'm always, how many kids can go find pickup basketball games, and it's going to be safe and organized. And I think pickup basketball is just it's so important for kids just to get a feel for the game. It's one thing to play with your school team or your travel team where the coaches is dictating what you do, but to really advance as a player, you got to figure things out on your own. And you only do that through playing. So we offer that. We offer pickup games for adults, and the same thing, they're officiated because we're not going to deal with nonsense that can come with pickup. We want everything to be a safe environment. We offer camps. We offer private one-on-one training, not only basketball, but even in the weight room fitness area. We do group training sessions and all that. Leagues. We have an adult league going on. We're getting ready to do a youth league. So really anything basketball related.
Yeah, so that's a lot of stuff going on. So yeah, it's really taking off. Like since I've been here, like you said, like I think after the COVID and
Yeah.
uh, yeah, a lot of people like playing basketball and stuff like that. So like just
It's
recreationally.
it's really amazing, and I've said this again from day one when I opened. For a person who whose life was entirely around basketball. That's all my life has been, is basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Until I opened this up here, I didn't really realize how many people love basketball.
Yeah.
Boys, girls, grown men, women, all ages. We have members here as young as 6 years old. We've got one member, he's out here playing. He comes every Saturday, Mr. Dan. He's 66 years old, and he looks forward to every Saturday getting out here and playing basketball. And so, and everywhere in between, it's just, basketball is a sport that so many people love. It's not going to go away. And some people, it's for the competitiveness. Some people just love it for exercise. There's a lot of people that they don't want to be on a treadmill. They don't like to run, but they love to play basketball. So it's really neat how many people just enjoy the sport.
Cool. And one last thing, Mr. Boyer, what advice would you give to the next generation of, business owners or people that's aspiring to get into this kind of business, like basketball or things like that?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, like anything else, go for it, chase your dreams, but also, do your research. Like it's one thing to, like when I got out of coaching, it's like, hey, this looks fun. Pick up USA. Let me do this. But I had no idea what I was getting myself into. Had no idea. Had I tried to do it, had I tried to have done it myself, it couldn't have done it. I needed help. So as much as it was like, look, I want to do this, you got to figure out, you got to do your research. You need to be advised on what you're doing. Don't just carelessly jump into it. That would be number one. And then number two is, don't be afraid to work. When I first got into this, there's a lot of potential franchises open up around the country for Pick Up USA Fitness. And a lot of those people, before they do it, they'll call and they'll ask me. And one of the first questions I always ask them is, and a lot of these people are like, in other cities around the country, they're business people that enjoy basketball. They have other businesses, but they enjoy basketball. So they're thinking they want to open up. And my question for all of them is, are you going to personally be at the gym every day and work? And so many of them are like, well, no, we've got our own business. We'll hire people to do that. And I'm like, let me just tell you right now, you better be ready to work and you better be ready to be there, because as you mentioned earlier about, actually running it, or we talked about being a head coach, when it comes down to it's going to come down to me, you, the owner out there. So yes, you can hire great people, and yes, you can put the right people in place. But when it comes down to succeeding or not succeeding, it's going to come down to you. So don't just think running a business is going to be hire people and then you can go off and do your own thing.
Yeah.
You better be willing to get there, and you better be willing to work. So yeah.
All right. And then also, since we are talking about basketball and you're a coach and stuff like that, so like as far as like a player, like if you're trying to develop as a player, like what are some key things that you would, I guess, say, as far as a player trying to come up and develop in the game?
Yeah, same thing. It's up to you. Work. You got to work. You got to put the work in. But then also, again, kind of similar in this is, you need advice too. You need somebody that's gonna, we all need people. It's one thing to go work, and like I see kids come in our gym all the time, and they'll spend 2-3 hours in the gym, and I sit there and think, you didn't really get anything done 2 or 3 hours. You're in here shooting at, one, not even half speed, right? So you got to be willing to work. You got to be willing to put it in, but you also need somebody that's going to push you and get you to work at the speed that's going to make you better. So you need development, whether that be training, whether it be coaching, somebody that's going to motivate you and push you. But then you got to do the combination of things. You got to play a lot, and you also got to develop the skills on your own.
Yep.
And you can't do one without the other. You can work all you want on the skills, but if you don't know how to apply it to the game, it's not going to work. You can play all day, every day, but if you don't develop your skills, so make sure you're doing both. Develop the skills, but then also make sure you're playing as well.
All right. Thanks. Yeah, that's great advice, Brian. And I thank you for sitting down with me today.